Hey guys, and welcome to this short update video on the AEW video game. Don't miss any news, so you're welcome to subscribe to this channel. You can also check out my AEW game concept videos. Links in the description below. So UK's game design supervisor Brian Williams did an long interview last week. I've put the link in the description. He talked about the current AEW wrestling product, and also about the upcoming AEW console game. Before we talk about the game itself, let's talk about how the deal between AEW and UKs came up. After Brian Williams did 3 job interviews with WWE and got no response in the end of 2018, the Elite announced in January 2019 the launch of All Elite Wrestling. 1 month later he had the idea of developing the AEW video game with the company he worked for, UKs, which did the develop for the WWE games for the last 20 years, but they separated in summer of 2018. He contacted her boss, Hiromi, in Japan, and he told her about AEW. AEW could be a big thing in the wrestling world, he told her. So finally he got her approval to talk with AEW about develop a video game for them. After AEW announced the signing of the Best Friends, where Trent is a part of and also is a good friend of Brian Williams, he texted Trent and said, "We, UKs, are done with WWE. We are clear to develop anything." He also asked him if AEW had a plan for a video game in the future. Trent answered with, "Yes, they talk all the time about this shit." So he asked Trent if he can connect him with AEW. And he got the email of Matt Jackson's wife. Brian asked her if there is any interest in a work relationship between AEW and UKs for a video game. She told him they are very interested. A few days later they had the first meeting with Brian Williams, her boss from UKs, and the AEW side in person of Cody, Brandy, and the vice president of licensing from AEW. Cody told them that they want a No Mercy style game, because they are all a big fan of. Brian said he is a big fan of SmackDown Here Comes the Pain. And he told Cody maybe they can mix it up. Cody liked the idea. So at this time Brian was the major person to stand for a year in contact with AEW. To sell UKs to AEW and sell at the same time AEW to her boss Hiromi from UKs. At the end her boss gave the agreement and the deal was done. So that is a cool story how AEW and UKs came together. Brian Williams was the guy who put both sides together. But he did not only talk about the story how all get started. No, he also talked about the game and gave some little hints and information. Brian Williams talks a lot about the models and their look. So he said that Cody told him AEW don't want photorealistic models and a simulated video game like WWE have. They want a different look of the WWE game. Cody also said that they don't want overly cartoony models, but more of an artistic style. Brian Williams read lot of responses and he understand that many people are surprised by the look of the models. But he explained the reason for this with this argument. The WWE video game series was the only wrestling game, except for one TNA game. So the people only know one look for a wrestling game in the yearly release way. Because of this he was not surprised by the reaction of many fans. Brian said the game is very early in development, this should we all know. But he don't think the style of the models change from artistic to realistic. The models in the teaser trailer were nowhere near the final version of the game, there is a lot of work left for the models. At the end they said, if you don't like the models, the gameplay will so good you forget about the models. Overall, I am not a big fan of the artistic models, but it's fair to give AEW the time and let them show us the final version. But if I could choose between artistic and photo-realistic models, I would choose the realistic models. But if the gameplay is fun and fine I am okay with it. Brian also said UKs doing wrestling games for the past 20 years, please trust in them. The game will be one of the greatest. Since Double or Nothing 2019 Brian Williams is creating videos and documents for moves, entrances, victories, attires and so on. He watch every pay-per-view, Dynamite and Dark show and he pull reference for everything. His video document system is 12,000 files large at the moment. This fact alone blow my mind. He told Cody he is a huge fan of Here Comes the Pain, so he said he wants to have some good elements from this game in the AEW game as well. So it's gonna be a modern day version of No Mercy and Here Comes the Pain. Fast, fluid, hard hitting, the variety and depth of the moves was his words for this. And the gameplay style is still in the work, nothing is put in stone. But the gameplay is gonna be inspired by No Mercy with the same kind of feeling. But there is not all from the past games. Bryan noted that there are a lot of new things which were never seen before in a wrestling game. So I am also a big fan of Here Comes the Pain, and I hope they put the backstage brawls from Here Comes the Pain in a modern AEW game. With all the different weapons, rooms and also the streets where you can wrestle. Would be a great thing. Bryan told that the big difference between doing in WWE and AEW game is that WWE had a publisher, AEW not. So in the past the publisher told UX exactly what they want in the game. UX had not much freedom to give the games what they wanted. This time, with the AEW game, they have a lot of freedom. AEW told them a lot of things, but there is still a lot of freedom for UX. They have a big influence in the game, much bigger than in the WWE games. And this is for me the greatest news in this interview, so we can expect many things that we never saw in a WWE game, but UX would like to put it in the past WWE games. The engine is brand new, and build it from the ground on. Nothing more to do with WWE engine from the past. WWE chapter is closed, were his words. He also said that the community is a big part of. As AEW, they also listen to the fans. Bryan Williams got some questions from Twitter in this interview. So I tell you the most interested answers. He said at the moment he cannot say if the moves are mo-cap or animated. I hope they doing motion capturing. The game have the game modes a wrestling game should have and fans expect from it. But which ones he didn't tell. Face morphing from the WWE games with photo upload is in for create a wrestler. He said also create a wrestler mode is very important to them. And very deep. One of the best they ever did. Kind of the WWE 2K19 creation mode. Updating superstar gears, styles and gimmicks in the future is a feature that Bryan wants, but there are still talks with AEW if and how could do this. So this would be awesome. We don't need a yearly release, but if the updating the models, gears and so on all the time, would be great. Hopefully this gonna happen. More than 100 people working on the game. Every superstar details are well covered. Kenny don't want any generic in the superstar details and especially in the moves. They hope they can add some more logic and intelligent for the AI, like in Fire Pro Wrestling. The game of Bryan is a big fan of. For example, Darby Allin doing more high-risk moves and jumps more often of the ring corner or a ladder than Shawn Spears. And also Bryan Williams confirms that if a wrestler bleed, the blood go to the ring mat and stay the whole match on the mat. So if a wrestler bleed, and the match goes long enough, most of the ring mat is gonna be full of blood. So that were all the highlights of the interview. Not much, but I think some cool information from Bryan Williams. What do you think about all the new information we got? Let me know in the comments below. Hopefully we get more news in the next weeks. Until then, check out my AEW game concepts, more to come. Don't forget to subscribe and like the video. And have a nice